forgot to take it off, just like Mike said. I knew that was going to happen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the AFC East Summit on the Nickel City Mafia Show, where our family business is football. It's just me and Keith today. The Jets and Patriots rep didn't want to show their face tonight, I guess. So it's just going to be us two rolling.
Well, to be clear, Sean, the Dolphins rep didn't really want to show his face tonight either.
But he still did. So gotta show the respect there. No, just kidding. Anthony's moving and Chris isn't feeling well. So just going to be us two. We're going to talk about the other two games a little bit, get into the Dolphins-Bills game and preview the next coming week. My voice is still a little hoarse from being at the game. So if I'm squeaking or sound weird, that's why. But Keith, how you doing today, man? Glad to have you here.
I'm good to be. I'm glad to be here, Sean. Sunday was rough, but it's one game. It's time to move on. Try and move past that absolute whooping the Dolphins took at the hands of the Bills.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, we'll get into it, but since that'll be the meat and the potatoes of the show, let's talk about the Patriots and the Cowboys. I didn't watch any of that game or anything, but from what I saw, what I heard, it was an absolute drubbing of the Patriots, and a lot of people thought maybe they had a chance to win this game. But I mean, with a fumble six and a pick six, it's just kind of hard to, stay afloat in that kind of game. Mac Jones was benched again. Doesn't seem to be an implication that he won't start again next week per Bill Belichick. They kept asking him the same question over and over again. Was it because he had a bad performance? Does it mean he's not going to start anymore? He said, I don't see the reason to leaving him in the game, which, is true. So I'm sure he'll start next week. He had a bad game. The team had a bad day overall. They lost Matt Judon, which is a horrible loss for them. And now their defense is going to be missing one of their star players as well. I think one of their corners also got hurt as well. I don't know how long.
Christian Gonzalez got hurt in that game.
Yeah, I don't know how long he'll be out for, but he was another promising piece for them this week. And unfortunately, he won't be around. So, Keith, I don't know if you caught any of that game, but did you want to speak on it?
Yeah, I saw the game. I watched it. I was kind of in a haze because after the Dolphins game, I didn't really want to do anything but sit on the couch, just stare at the wall. But I did watch the game, and it was. I think people thought the Patriots had a chance going into that game based on how the Cowboys performed last week against Arizona, but the Cowboys seemed to recover nicely from that game and really. Their defense especially was flying all over the field. Micah Parsons yet again had another great game, really putting his stamp on wanting to be Defensive Player of the Year this year. Deron Bland, their cornerback, who's taking over for the injured Trayvon Diggs, had a really nice game. Shut down the Patriots receivers really nicely. It just seemed like the Patriots couldn't do anything against the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, their offense, yet again, didn't perform all that great, but they didn't need to. They don't need to going forward if their defense plays like that. And, I guess, the Patriots just didn't have anything for the Cowboys on Sunday. And some games are like that.
Oh, yeah. We've all been at the hand of those kind of games, so... Absolutely true. RX Fly Fishing, go Bills. Just got home after seeing my first Bills game in Orchard Park. So sick. That's amazing, dude. That was the perfect one to go to. I was there. I was up in by the suites in the 200 level, right underneath the 300 level. So all the shade was covering me, which was incredible. I was already hot there, so I could only imagine how hot people were that weren't covered by shade. But nonetheless, it was absolutely perfect experience. On my way home from Buffalo, after it took an hour and a half to get out of the parking lot, which is always horrible. But that's the price you pay if you want to watch every second of the game, and that's the kind of guy I am. Whether we lost by 100 or won by 100, I'm there to the last snap because I don't get to go to games too. This year I got lucky. I get to go to 3 games. But usually it's like a once a year, once every couple of years kind of thing. So I'm definitely staying no matter what.
What other games are you going to, Sean?
I go on a Thursday night football in 2 weeks against the Bucks, and then I'll be in Miami week 18.
Okay, cool.
So
cool.
I'm blessed for that, the opportunity, and it'll be it was nice to not have to drive home, white knuckling the steering wheel the whole way. So hopefully it's not a long flight home, and hopefully we can take care of business against the Bucks. I'm undefeated going to games, so uh, hopefully keep that streak going. I try to warn Dolphins fans and say, "Hey, I'm undefeated. It might be part of why we're going to win this game." And
You
you know,
should consider going to less games, Sean.
all 20, maybe then we'll win. We can go to every single game. But I was able to listen to a Jets YouTuber stream the game, the Chiefs Jets game. Again, didn't get to watch it, but from what they were saying and what they were explaining, I did watch the second half when I got home though. But the first half, it just seemed like Chiefs had control of that game. It was 17-0 before you knew it. Then it was 17-2, and then you're like, oh, that's kind of cute. Maybe they'll score 5 points. So maybe it'll be funny to see like a 40-2 Chiefs win, And when I got home and I was seeing Zach Wilson play, Zach Wilson actually played the best game of his life. And it was, I feel for the kid, and I wanted to talk to Anthony about it because, he's a Jets rep, but he's not here. Just imagining having your whole city not like you, having your whole team not like you, and then you're supposed to sit this year, and then all of a sudden you get thrown back into it and people still don't like you. People still think you suck. And you still remember my team last year wore shirts of the backup quarterback talking about how great he was, how they want him to play. And now I have to go out there and play. And the fact that he's still able to go out there and he was able to perform the best game of his life against a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, he had a costly turnover that lost him the game. But, I like Zach Wilson for the fact that he was immature last year and didn't take accountability for him being terrible. He didn't acknowledge that, yeah, it's my fault we lost because I stink and I couldn't put up more than 6 points to win a game. My defense held the team to under 10. But now he's taking all the responsibility. He's still going to work every day. He's still trying to do his best, even when he knows nobody wants him to play. Jet fans can lie to you all they want. Like, oh, yeah, we believe in Zach Wilson before yesterday when they were saying, oh, we believe in Zach Wilson. They really didn't. So, and he knows that too. So to be able to perform, like imagine, Keith, I don't know what you do for work, but say you go to your job and all your coworkers say that you're horrible at it. Your boss says you're horrible at it, but you're still there, that you still have your job. And that every day you go in, people just think of you as a horrible employee and that you're not an asset to the team. It's going to be hard for you to either stay motivated or continue to grow, in your profession. So for Zach Wilson to be able to do that, and, yeah, he had one good game in 3 years. I'm not saying it's going to change his life, and he could go out next week and be normal Zach Wilson. But to do that kind of game and then lose ultimately in the end, I felt horrible for him. But how'd you feel about that Jets game and then that call? I do think it was a holding on Sauce.
Yes.
I understand why everybody's angry. You can't let a game against the Chiefs come down to a call because they're always going to get it. We've been at the hands of it, and the Patriots especially have been at the hands of it as well. The Bengals, the Eagles even. And you got to make it so it doesn't come down to that. And unfortunately, the Jets did. But we can't pretend like Sauce isn't like that every single play. He did pull on his shoulder and pulled his jersey across his body. That's as ticky-tack as it was, and then it was in the biggest moment. And I know they said he only threw it after he threw the flag. Regardless, it was still holding. So how'd you feel about that game and that ending play?
Well, I mean, honestly, it was a good call on Sauce. It was a hold on Sauce, and you can call it ticky tack all you want. To the letter of the law, Sauce was guilty, and that flag should have been thrown. But I agree with what you're saying about Russell Wilson, Zach Wilson. I agree with what you're saying about Zach Wilson. He came out and he kind of went toe to toe with the best in the league and almost brought the Jets back to win that game. So he deserves, for just 1 week only, he deserves accolades for doing so. Next week might be a different story. I think, but next week they're facing a Broncos defense that hasn't been good this year. And I'm not even just talking about the 70 points. They gave up 30 plus to the Commanders, and they don't have a good defense this year. So this could be another get right game for Zach Wilson. And if Zach Wilson succeeds against the Broncos on Sunday, then maybe we can start talking about, a redemption tour of sorts for Zach Wilson. Maybe he can, maybe that's something that he needs is a game against the Broncos to really just beat the hell out of the Broncos.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm not, the Broncos also gave up 30 plus to Justin Fields and the Bears.
Oh my gosh, Justin Fields looked like MVP.
Yeah. Yeah.
His one good game also.
Exactly. So, it seems to be that, facing the Broncos cures what ails a quarterback, right? So,
yeah, maybe.
So, Russell Wilson, I keep on saying Russell Wilson, Zach Wilson, this could be a get right game for him. And maybe he'll turn a corner after this week. Who knows? But, I'm still not convinced. I think the Chiefs kind of let their foot off the pedal a little bit and let Zach Wilson bring the Jets back into that game. I think once the Chiefs went up 17-0, I think they thought the Jets were just going to fold, and they kind of just relaxed a little too much and let the Jets back into the game. And once you take your foot off the pedal, it's hard to put your foot back on the pedal in a game like that, especially in the NFL. So, still, I commend Zach Wilson for playing a nice game, but I don't think he's turned a corner or anything. I don't think this is, a Zach Wilson renaissance we're seeing right now.
I get it. Absolutely. It's funny because count that pick that Mahomes threw that they got called back from the flag.
Yeah.
And Mosley also dropped one that was right to him. But I didn't hear anybody talk about how Mahomes should have had 4 interceptions and possibly lost that game, and how Zach Wilson outperformed him with, you could say Allen outperformed him in that playoff game, but when they say outperform, they meant like Zach Wilson had more completions, Zach Wilson had more yards, Zach Wilson had more touchdowns, Zach Wilson had less interceptions, Zach Wilson had better completion percentage than Mahomes did. And I guess that was a stat said that was the first time that ever happened to Mahomes in college or NFL. So in that sense of outdoing, Zach Wilson did. And he lost. When you look at the games that the Jets beat us, the last 2 times they beat us, Zach Wilson was like 10 for 20 with 120 yards, a touchdown and a pick, and they won. And Josh Allen had like 200-something yards, 2 touchdowns, and two picks or whatever, and we still lost. So
yeah, that wasn't a matter of Zach Wilson winning those games.
Right. He won games against us, but he didn't do anything like he did against the Chiefs.
Right.
And I just think it's funny how like it's not talked about that Mahomes did that. But because Josh Allen did it, it was all like, oh yeah, he was horrible. He had 4 turnovers, but then Mahomes had 2, should have had 4, because one of them actually was a pick, but it got called back, and the other one was right in the guy's hand. Like it was like the Milano pick against Wilson in the first game. It was right to him, caught it, boom, he just dropped it. So nobody talked about that. I thought it was funny, but hopefully for Zach Wilson, because think about it, this was a great game for him, and then if he goes and dominates the Broncos, he's going to feel like he's finally turned a page, and the Jet fans will feel like they got hope. They'll be 2-3, and they think, oh, we still got a shot at the division. If Zach Wilson could play like this, we can win football games, because they're under the belief that if they get average quarterback play, that they're a Super Bowl contender. And
I've been saying that for a while too, Sean. I think
at the same time, their defense hasn't been that great this year. You look at what they did against the Cowboys, they got smoked. They gave up 24 points to the Chiefs. The 23 should have been 30, but Mahomes slid. So should have been 30 against the Chiefs. Josh crapped down his leg, so you could attribute that to his own mistake because they made the plays, but it was just Josh throwing the ball. It wasn't really confusion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, the Patriots game, I guess you could say that was good defense, but
it's not like the Patriots offense are a bunch of juggernauts though.
Right. And of course they still have a great defense. I'm not trying to say it's not fantastic, but they assume that because they have the players they got that it guarantees wins if you have average quarterback play. Look at our team. Right now, I guess before the game yesterday, the Seahawks had 10 sacks. But before that game, we were leading the NFL in sacks and leading the NFL in takeaways without Von Miller. and we're second in scoring defense behind the Cowboys. And we've lost the game. So it's like, and we have a great quarterback. So great quarterback and a great defense, and you still lost to a team like the Jets. So it doesn't always equate to wins guaranteed. That's all I'm saying is like, yeah, they got a fantastic defense. They're not the 85 Bears like they thought they were.
No.
But what if you don't know? What if Zach Wilson starts playing better, but then the defense doesn't play better, and then it's like, oh wow, now we got average quarterback play, but the defense is faltering.
Right.
You get one injury and something could change. So I just think, and the mistake that the Jets made in the offseason was hoping that Aaron Rodgers would never get hurt, and then not having an actual backup quarterback because they wanted Zach to have a whole redshirt year where he learns behind a veteran, Aaron Rodgers or otherwise. They got Tim Boyle, assuming that Rodgers was going to stay healthy the whole season, which was wrong and kind of silly on their part. He got hurt in 4 plays. Then they had to go immediately to Zach Wilson. And maybe if they had another veteran, they could have got Bridgewater in the offseason. They could have got Minshew in the offseason. And there was a couple other guys that are playing significant snaps right now for teams that they could have had, and they didn't reach out to them. So a Baker Mayfield, even. They could have Baker Mayfield. Look how he's playing. He's playing above average.
Yeah.
So, who knows what could have happened. But now they have to trust that in Zach, and, we'll see. But if he plays like that, they'll win games. They won't be. I don't think they'll be fighting for a division, but they'll win games if Zach can play like that for sure.
They'll win games. They'll play themselves out of a top pick for a quarterback to replace Zach Wilson eventually, because I think we can safely say at this point that Zach Wilson isn't the Jets' future franchise quarterback. Mm-hmm. So they're going to play themselves to 6 or 7 wins, which takes them out of contention for guys like Drake May and Williams out of USC. So, I think it's impossible to know how good this Jets team could have been, how good the Jets defense could have been as a whole, because that defense is constantly under pressure due to the ineptitude of the offense. Right. The Cowboys game being a perfect example. Their defense gave up a ton of points because their defense was on the field all day. Zach Wilson couldn't get anything going on offense. So, of course, the defense is going to get tired eventually. And, of course, the defense is going to falter under those circumstances. Even the 85 Bears would have faltered, because the 86 Bears defense was basically the same defense, but the offense was even more inept in 1986 than they were in 1985. So, it's just impossible to know how good the Jets could have been without having Aaron Rodgers in there. There's a stat that Anthony wanted us to mention. He sent us a text message.
Oh, sure.
There's a stat
for group text. I don't think I got it.
It was in the Discord that it was in the.
Okay. I don't really. Okay.
So yeah, there's a text that he wanted us to mention. So 35 running backs have at least 30 carries this season. All right. Most yards per carry is Breece Hall at 6.5. Least yards per carry is Dalvin Cook at 2.5. He wanted us to mention that. And, and Anthony was never a fan of the Dalvin Cook signing. And he's kind of vindicated in that, because Dalvin Cook has not been good. He looks, he looks cooked, pun intended.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He just looks bad out there. He looks old. And Breece Hall looks like he's regaining his form from last year. So that's another wrinkle in this weird Jets season that we're seeing right now, where they sign a guy like Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin Cook comes in and just, isn't very good at all.
Well, the thing about Dalvin Cook is he's not that type of back that can come off the bench and give you a big run. He's the guy that needs 20, 30 carries a game, because he's going to break one for 50 plus yards. Yeah. And like I mentioned before we had our week 1 debate, when everyone was saying Dalvin Cook's going to be a game changer for the Jets, I said he's a -3 yard carry, 0, -1, 1, 0, -4, 5, 50. That's the type of running back he is. So if you give him 3 carries, in a quarter, he's not going to get anything for you. So he doesn't look great, but I think if you gave him 15, 20 carries in a row like he was getting in Minnesota, he'd have better stats. And also, they have a horrible line, like I mentioned, week 1, and it's been persistently horrible. As much as Anthony wants to debate that it's not, it's been horrible every single week.
No, I think that debate's been put to bed, Sean. They're a bad offensive line.
Yeah, it's looked better this week, but better from horrible still isn't that great. So, and he's always had a good offensive line, Dalvin Cook. So, very true. That stat is very true, but he's just not the type of back that's going to be able to do that for you off the bench. He's not a come in for four or 5 carries a game and get you 50 yards. Like he's not even a short yardage back. He's that one big play guy. And that's what, again, when he's on the Vikings last year, we shut him down, and then he had an 85-yard run, and then that was all he did. Besides that, he didn't. Obviously, you can't take it away. Because people say, take that away, and he only rushed for 1 yard to carry. But every other time he ran the ball, we shut him down. Then he had that one big run, and then he had over 100 yards, and it skews everything. So I think they only got Dalvin Cook because they didn't know how Breece Hall was going to be. They thought maybe he won't be ready right away. They thought maybe he could re-aggravate an injury. Maybe he won't play the whole season, and they got it for an insurance. And because Aaron Rodgers gave up all that money, so they said, we can take the risk of this. When they had pretty good, Anthony would tell you, they had pretty good backs that could have been back number 2 instead of Dalvin Cook, and you could have used the money on something else. But, like a better quarterback or, maybe, I don't know. It's too late to say offensive line now because all the good ones are already gone. You have to wait till next year. But enough about the Jets, enough about the Patriots, enough about the basement of the division right now. Let's get into the real reason why people are here, and that's to talk about the Miami Dolphins against the Buffalo Bills, which I was at the game. And, if you guys have me on Facebook or Instagram, you saw some of my pictures that I posted of the wings and everything. I'll do my spiel after, but I'll let Keith take the floor and tell me your thoughts before the game and what you really felt, and then how you felt watching it, how you felt at the end, and your overall thought.
Well, in truth, I didn't see the game going the way it went. I thought it was going to be a closer game than it was. But going in, I also readily admit that I didn't know how that game was going to go. I guess me thinking that the Dolphins would win 38-37, which is the prediction I made a couple of times on this channel throughout the week, was wishful thinking on my part. Especially with the injuries the Dolphins had, they were pretty key injuries in key areas. And I'm not going to blame this on injuries. The Bills thoroughly beat the Dolphins down. With or without those players, the result probably would have been similar. But a couple of injuries that I do want to highlight was first and foremost, the injury to Connor Williams was pretty detrimental to what the Dolphins wanted to do on Sunday. Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver lined up across from Liam Eichenberg and probably got big smiles on their faces. They probably said, we're about to have an afternoon. And they did. They wreaked havoc on the Dolphins all afternoon. And it was Liam Eichenberg was bad. And I'm not going to defend Tua's performance too much because he wasn't very good on Sunday. But it's hard to play quarterback when your center is being pushed into your lap on every snap. And that's what Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver were doing to Liam Eichenberg. And that's rough. That's just, and if that is happening, your quarterback's going to throw the ball high, which is what when Tua made his mistakes, he was throwing the ball high. His interception that he threw, that, when the Dolphins were trying to rally in the second half, I thought maybe they can come back and make this a game. And Liam Eichenberg's pushed into his lap. Tua throws an interception. And basically that was it for the Dolphins for the afternoon. Defensively, Jalen Ramsey injury, they should have been over this by now. They should have they should know how to cover up for Jalen Ramsey's injury, but Eli Apple hasn't performed well. Cam Smith isn't ready to perform well. So they pressed Kader Kohou into duty. Kader Kohou is a slot cornerback who was forced outside. and he drew the unlucky assignment of having Stephon Diggs line up against him. And Stephon Diggs ate his lunch all afternoon. It was just, it was brutal. Stephon Diggs, he had 120 yards receiving, but it felt like a lot more. 3 touchdowns. There was also that big pass interference penalty that was 40 yards down the field. So, you can attribute that to Stephon Diggs' stats if you'd like, so that brings up to 160 yards receiving, which seems a lot closer to what it actually was.
I wish they counted that for stats, though. Wouldn't that be cool?
They should. They really should.
Quarterback and the receiver stats, and
yeah, or count that as a separate stat or whatever. How many yards and pass interference penalties did you
adjusted
draw?
yards, or something like that. Yeah,
because that was all Stephon Diggs, and Kader Kohou made the play on the ball, but he was grabbing Stephon Diggs all down the sideline and then didn't even turn to look for the ball. So I got texts from people saying, "Oh, that wasn't a penalty on Kader Kohou." I'm here to put that to rest right now. Yes, it was. That was a penalty on Kader Kohou. Like, by any metric, that was a penalty. That was pass interference on him. So, it was just a rough afternoon overall. And it wasn't just those two guys, Liam Eichenberg and Kader Kohou, who performed poorly. It was the tackling on the Dolphins. It was just terrible tackling all around.
I thought we were bad at tackling.
Yeah, it was just really bad tackling. The Dolphins, to me, seemed like a team who was reading the newspaper headlines and was reading all the internet headlines and listening to all the talking heads on ESPN saying how great they are and how, well, they're Super Bowl contenders now. They're the ones that are going to come out of the AFC. That's kind of the feeling I got from the Dolphins, where they're reading into the hype too much. They're smelling themselves, and they went out there and they played like a team that wasn't 100% mentally engaged in this game. And you can't do that, especially against the Bills. They said all the right things where they said, "Oh, well, yeah, this is a huge game. If you can't get motivated for this one," they said all the right things, but they didn't play like it. They didn't play like a team that was taking this game as seriously as they should have. And as a result, it was just a bad game overall. And it's one that they need to put behind them. They need to forget all about this game and move on with the rest of their season. And, we're only 4 games in, but they do control their own destiny to win the AFC East. So,
yeah, that's all it's about. I mean,
yeah,
it's 3-1 right now. I mean, we technically have the lead, but
yeah, you do.
I mean, before you continue, a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that are Dolphins fans that do YouTube. I met a lot of them and listening to their shows, and a lot of them mention Week 18 is going to decide a division. The only way Week 18 decides a division if both teams take care of business to make it count for the division. There's a chance that the Bills are 2 games back or the Dolphins are 2 games back, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I like the thought of that game's going to, especially because I'm going to be there. So the thought that game's going to be for all the marbles, I love that.
I'm not going to sleep the entire week, Sean.
Long time away. So
yeah,
I mean, we don't. Heck, we both can lose 10 games in a row and then not make the playoffs. So
it's possible.
You know what I mean? So, but go ahead, continue.
No, I mean, I said what I wanted to say. The Dolphins control their own destiny here, and they just need to put this game behind them. It was a terrible performance on them and a great performance by the Bills. Josh Allen was spectacular all afternoon. He just carved the Dolphins up. He absolutely carved the Dolphins up, and he only threw like 24 passes, I think. So, it felt like a lot
21,
more.
21 for 25, I think.
Okay, yeah. So, it's not like he threw a lot. It was just him carving the Dolphins up with surgical precision, and it was really, I mean, it's a performance that we've seen Josh Allen have multiple times throughout his career. He's a great quarterback, and he's not somebody to be taken lightly. And I think the Dolphins just took him and this game and everything about it just too lightly. There are very few Dolphins who I can say showed up and played a really good game. If we're doing game balls, nobody's getting a game ball on the Dolphins for Sunday.
Not even a Chan? Not even a Chan?
He got some yards, but that big run he had, that was
garbage time.
Yeah, it was garbage time.
But he had 2 touchdowns. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns though.
He did. I'm encouraged by him. I'm encouraged by how fast he is and how he hits the holes and everything. But do it when the game's still in question. Do it in the first half.
Right, absolutely.
And Raheem Mostert had just a terrible fumble that just killed another drive for the Dolphins. It was just rough game. Just a rough game.
Yeah.
Andrew Van Ginkel had a couple of sacks on Josh Allen. He's showing again why he just needs to be on the field regardless of who's injured and who's healthy. The Dolphins need to find a way to get him on the field constantly. But like I said, move on. They got the Giants down in Miami this week. This should be a get right game for them. It's time for them to just forget this Bills game ever happened and move on with the rest of their season.
Absolutely. Before I get into my thoughts, there is something that Tua said that, as a person, I personally liked. They were asking him about the game, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he basically said, "Well, it's humbling for some people, and I think some people needed that." And
yeah,
I could already think of who he's talking about. If I had to pick players out, I guarantee you I could guess every single one of them. But for the leader of your team to say, some people needed to be humbled, because he's a humble guy.
Yeah,
he's not talking about himself. That's why he said some people. He didn't say we.
Yeah,
he knew people were in the locker room, like Tyreek Hill, like Christian Wilkins, like Bradley Chubb, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
They're like, hey, don't worry about this, bro. We got this. We're gonna smoke these guys. We run this division now. We're gonna make T-shirts about why aren't we underdog emoji? You know what I mean? Like, and that's the kind of thing. I put that on Mike McDaniel partly, but that's just what happened. They weren't thinking like the Bills were thinking. The Bills were thinking, okay, you guys think you should be favored against us at home. You think that you beaten us one time in 11 games that you should be favored? You think that we're just a team you could walk over and step over and take the crown without even earning it yet? Okay, all right, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, partly it seemed like they weren't prepared for what was to come. And
and I've said it before, Sean. I said it before. I'll say it again. We've done rankings, the teams in the AFC East throughout this show. And I always had the Bills ranked ahead of the Dolphins because you don't just get to be given that crown.
You go with the Jets logo.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing, Jim? Good to see you in here.
You don't get to just be given the crown. You have to take that crown. You have to beat the Bills and take that crown. And a perfect way to do that would have been to beat them up in Buffalo, but you have to go up there and be mentally prepared to beat them up in Buffalo. They weren't mentally prepared for it. They weren't mentally prepared for what was about to happen to them.
Absolutely. And before I get into my spiel, I just want to mention two things can be true. Yes, we dominated the game and won, but you're still a great football team. One game, just because we won this game doesn't mean we're going to win the Super Bowl. Just because you lost this game doesn't mean you guys are going to, not make the playoffs.
Exactly.
I always mention, of course, be excited if your team wins, because I've seen some Dolphins fans are like, enjoy your Week 4 Super Bowl. Is your team not supposed to be happy when you win?
No.
Come on.
No, it was the same things we were hearing after Week 3 last year. Enjoy your Super Bowl. It's like, look, I'm going to bask in this glory as long as I can here. No matter we don't beat the Bills very often.
Right. You got to enjoy your wins, no matter who you play as a team. But the most important game is the next one. We beat the Dolphins, but we got to take care of business with the Jags, because if we beat the Dolphins and lose to the Jags, it doesn't really mean nothing.
Yeah.
Because we played a lesser team in the Jags and we won't win. So if you go and you beat the Jags, great. Now we got to worry about the Giants. And great. Now we got to worry about whoever and so in the Bucks and then the Bengals and so and so and so and so.
We both teams, both the Dolphins and the Bills, have really tough schedules. Really, it's going to be a rocky, bumpy road to travel before we meet each other in Week 18. There's so many
Absolutely.
things that can happen between now and then. But like you said, it's one game. You know, the Bills need to move on from their drubbing of the Dolphins just as much as the Dolphins need to move on from their drubbing at the hands of the Bills. You know,
Absolutely. And
both
that's
teams
the
need to put
perfect
this game
point.
behind them and move on to the rest of the season.
That's a perfect
Um,
point because I think that's what Tua was trying to say was a lot of your team was still in that 70-20 win and
yep.
thought that they were. I mean, and people in comment sections on different people's channels were like, Bills can't do anything against us. We're unstoppable. I said everybody's stoppable. No matter
Yep.
who you are, no matter what sport it is, no matter the whatever,
Yeah. In a
everything
lot
has
of
a
ways,
reason.
Sean, in a lot of ways, that 70-20 game right before the Bills game could have been the worst thing that could have happened to the Dolphins. You
Oh, I
know,
was happy for. I knew that
yeah,
something like that would be good for the next team that played. But
it could have been the worst possible thing that could have happened to the Dolphins.
yeah.
And
Hey,
it
still
turns
enjoy
out that
that
it
one
was.
though. Still enjoy that one though.
Well,
I
yeah, I
mean,
loved it,
yeah,
in the moment. But then I there was a little itch in the back of my mind that was saying, are they going to think that they're better than they actually are after a win like that? After everything goes right for them and everything goes wrong for the other team, are they going to think they're actually better than they are?
absolutely. Before I get into it again, let's read Jim's comment. Kind of unfair that the Bills had to take the flight while the Jags have been there for 2 weeks. Yes, I do think
Yeah,
that's kind of messed up, and
yeah,
it does give an unfair advantage, especially because we're actually the home team for this
yeah.
game, and we have no advantage whatsoever. But it's one of those games where you have to say, okay, whatever. We just got to go there and take care of business. The Jags have not looked good at all this season. So it's just one of those things that we have to get that. We haven't beaten the Jags the last couple of times. We lost to them 10-3 in the playoffs. And in Lawrence's rookie year, we lost to the 9-6 to the Jags when they were the worst team in the NFL with Urban
Yeah.
Meyer. So we still have to beat them, and we haven't beat them in a while. So let's
Is
get
that a
back to
9:30 game, Sean?
9:30.
9:30.
Yep. But let me get into my Bills Dolphins recap. Also want to mention beforehand, this is what Tyreek Hill gets for saying that the Bills fans are just a regular fan base. They're just like any other away game, because I was there again, and Bills Mafia did affect this game tremendously. Your offense looked rattled on the field, not because of just the defense, but because of Bills Mafia causing false starts, so and whatever. But I've been there a couple times, and I never heard it as loud as it was. And I know we're always loud, we always bring the energy, but it was personal, not just to the team, but to the fans. And he was being too cocky and arrogant, like always, and it goes to bite you in the butt. And maybe he'll learn to be more like his quarterback, his leader, to just
Guys like
keep
Tyreek Hill don't learn, Sean.
hey, I mean, we won't get into it, but his track history shows that he doesn't really learn his lesson. But okay,
Yeah.
so we can move on to the next thing. And I don't understand why my camera's always, even though I put it on elevation, it's still high. But okay, I'm gonna lean down a little bit. So going into the game, we get the ball first. I'm like, okay, this is incredible. This is gonna be awesome. Here we go. Score a touchdown. Then we go on. Oh my god, that was way too easy. This is gonna be a freaking. I mean, from the first drive, I thought this was gonna be a high scoring game before the Dolphins even went. I said, wow, that was way too easy. And then the Dolphins get the ball. And of course, we're in a soft ass zone. And the Dolphins march down the field easily. I'm texting the guys in the group chat, Jake, Brett, and Mike. And I said, this weak ass soft zone is not going to work. We get the ball back, score again. I said, woof, all right, at least we got to keep scoring first. And then we're still in the soft, raggedy zone. Dolphins score again. But then, to Sean McDermott's credit, because we're not used to this as fans, he significantly adjusted and still ran zone coverage for majority, but disguised press man at the line of scrimmage with cover two help. And I mentioned that in my pregame. I didn't have a pregame on my channel, but my keys to victory were get interior pressure, which we did, play press man coverage to disrupt the flow, which we did, and then was it? And then don't be like trying to cheat and look in the backfield, and just stick to your assignment as a defensive player. So, when we switched to press man a little bit, we were able to get more pressure on Tua and disrupt everything because the first read was no longer there. And there's nothing wrong with going to your first read because that's how the offense was designed, was for Tua to be able to go to his first read and it be open because of the speed and everything. So with this disguised zone coverage with press man, it enabled the Bills to get to Tua because Tua didn't have 2.2 seconds to get the ball out. He had 2.6. So it changed everything and it changed the flow of the game. You guys couldn't run the ball until the end of the game. Yeah, you got 2 touchdowns in the red zone, but Mostert was 7 carries for 9 yards. And before that, Achane couldn't really do anything unless he was in the red zone anyway. So you guys couldn't run the ball. And then because, credit to the defense. And then because we were playing press man, we were able to bump Tyreek Hill, bump Jalen Waddle off the line of scrimmage, disrupt Tua's motion, disrupt Tua's flow. And then we were able to get to him, get 4 sacks. He was sacked once this whole season until then, which I talked about it with other Fins creators, how the offensive line was looked at as being one of the best. But was it because they were the best or because Tua was getting the ball out quick? And then a lot of them agreed with what I said, that getting the ball out quick is a majority of it. Now, you saw what happened. Yeah, Connor Williams wasn't there, but I will mention it's the Dolphins' fault because Eichenberg isn't even a center. He has no center capability. They didn't have a backup center in the building ready to play ever. So, yeah, Eichenberg is horrible. He stinks. But it's not his fault the Dolphins didn't get a true backup center to back up Connor Williams. So, it is a huge loss to not have Connor Williams, but it's all on the Dolphins' fault because they didn't bring a true backup in, just like Zach Wilson's, that situation there. So when that was happening, we were able to adjust, and then we got forced fumbles. Tyreek Hill wasn't involved. He had 3 catches for 50 yards. We could stop the run. Everything looked fantastic on defense. We were getting sacks. We were getting pressures. Beautiful. And then on offense, I was like, I expect McDaniel to make adjustments. I expect Fangio to try to make adjustments. You guys didn't adjust at all. And even McDaniel admitted that. He said, I didn't adjust. That's also the cockiness that he has. Even though he's in a second year, he sees himself as nobody can outsmart me. I'm better than everybody else. And, we've seen that with our coaches. They're being stubborn as hell. Leslie Frazier, great defensive coordinator, but never got deviated off the game plan. So offensively, we were still able to run. We were able to throw all over Kohu. And X says, I wanted to be on Diggs. No, you didn't. Because if you did, you would have been on him. You make $25 million a year or whatever you make. If you're that guy, you say, Fangio, I'm going on Diggs. Hey, Kohu, get out of here. Go play somewhere else. Go play another side. I'm playing on Diggs. And, even when he was on Diggs last year, it was the same result. You got cooked. So, obviously not having Ramsey hurts. We didn't have Von Miller. You guys didn't have Ramsey. That's like a wash kind of thing. And even without Phillips, you guys still don't have an organic pass rush. So maybe Phillips could have made a play or two. But I think the way our offensive line has been playing, after 4 weeks, I know it's only 4 weeks, pass blocking alone, the Bills are the number 1 ranked offensive line. So we've been dominating in that aspect of offense, and which is giving Josh tons of time, able to make all the plays he needs, able to make all the reads, and we're capitalizing off of it. So I don't think that Phillips necessarily would have made a big difference on this game defensively. I think there's more problems than just missing Jalen Phillips. As good of a player as he is, the defense was a big problem, and it wasn't good at all in the first 3 weeks. But now it's like a lot of Dolphins fans are like, oh, you know what? It'll get better. Fangio's going to turn it around. Then a game like this kind of exposes it a little bit more. Like, this was a first great team we played. The Bills, this is the first great team they played in the Dolphins. It was a first true matchup. Now they thought, it was actually way worse than we thought. And we got significant issues on defense. We got to fix this now. And, I was just happy with how the Bills didn't let the foot off the gas. They adjusted when they needed to. They were able to run the ball consistently and effectively. And Josh had tons of time, made great plays. When he didn't have time, the few times he didn't, he still made plays. And that's what separates him from a lot of quarterbacks. And I give Sean McDermott a ton of credit because a lot of people might say, the Dolphins just played bad. I think it was the Bills made the Dolphins play bad. And that starts with the coaching and Sean McDermott, not Leslie Frazier, Eric Washington, Ken Dorsey and Bobby Babbage, so on and so forth, because it was a complete team win. Every single facet of the game played extremely well. I mean, Tyler Bass on special teams, Teron Neal on special teams. We only punted twice, and it was just an all around great win. And it was good to see because we didn't beat anybody good yet, and we knew that we were looked at as a doormat by most media outlets. And yeah, some people still had us winning the division, but a lot of people thought the Bills are done. The Bills aren't going to have success anymore. The Dolphins almost beat the Bills with Skylar Thompson in the playoffs last year, or the Bills got beat by Tua last year in week 3. So it's going to be an easy win for the Dolphins. And the Bills took it personally, and they prepared well, and they were ready for it. But now, like I said, as good as the win was, by now they should be moved on to the Jags and make that game against the Dolphins even better by beating the Jags this week. And like I said, 2 things are true. We did dominate the game. You guys are still a fantastic football team. I just credit that more to how the Bills played and how the coaches prepared as to how the Dolphins didn't play good. Because, people can bring up the O-line. This is the second game you had Armstead. The other 2 games you didn't have Armstead, you still won, and everyone was praising the offensive line. But now because they lost and Tua didn't ball out, everybody blames the offensive line and this and that. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk about things that were bad, because the offensive line got, beat around pretty good. You guys got bullied in the trenches, and which I think surprised the defensive line like Christian Wilkins, because, we never had a great offensive line until this year. And the guys like Osiris Torrance and Connor McGovern really have made this offensive line incredible. So I think they maybe were a little bit surprised at how good they actually were. And I don't think they'll sleep on us next week, but overall game we truly needed. It doesn't mean you guys aren't going to be good the rest of the year. It doesn't mean we're going to go undefeated. It just means that week we took care of business and we needed to. And, just being there, especially for a game of that magnitude, was incredible. Yeah, you don't get to see everything like you do on the TV. Like, you put your face right up to it and see every offensive lineman do this. So I'm going to have to watch the film as well. But just being there was incredible. The energy was great. And they gave us something to play for. I do want to mention the 2 plays you mentioned about the poor tackling. That was just a perfect display of never giving up on the play. Because when that happened, I was like, oh, man, good play, though. Then all of a sudden you see Diggs run for a 50-yard touchdown. And you're like, wow, he wanted it more than they did. They tried to punch the ball out, and he just said, okay, well, let me hold on to the ball and wiggle my way out of here. Same thing with James Cook. It was just a great play, and not giving up on the ball. So poor tackling by Miami, but also shows how important it was to these players to just, no matter what, I got to try to make a play out of something. And they did. So overall,
I think the defense was looking for a spark on those plays, get a fumble, maybe turn the momentum a little bit. And your focus needs to be on tackling first. And if it's not, a guy like Diggs, a guy like James Cook, they're just going to make you pay.
Absolutely. And Jim mentioned this is Zach I've been waiting for. I guess he just needed some time to gel. Yeah, it's time to, just like with Spencer Brown, one of our worst offensive linemen who have been hard on because he deserved it. He had 3 great weeks in a row, and he compounded each week and got, it wasn't just a fluke. He did good every week, and now he gets the credit because he earned it. And the whole offensive line as a whole has been absolutely outstanding. PFF is like I always mention. You can look at PFF. They graded Osiris Torrance like a 45 in pass blocking, which was the worst offensive lineman on the team. But that's why you use it as a tool, because that's not what I saw on the field, because everyone that he blocked didn't do anything. So you have to watch the film, use it as a tool, and say, okay, they graded him as a 45 in pass blocking. How was this rep? How was this rep? How was this rep? Use it as a tool. But, I mean, they did, as a whole, absolutely fantastic.
Well, they graded Liam Eichenberg as a 10. Yes. And I think that grade was a little too high for him, actually.
Maybe. I mean, we've had people. Ryan Bates got a 5 1 year, last year at some point. So Jake wants to know my thoughts on Barbell Wings. That's the place I went to. I got his recommendation, and I can't wait to go back to Buffalo in a couple of weeks and get more wings, because I only had time to go to one spot. So I get into Buffalo around 6 o'clock, get right to Barbell. There's like probably 200 people there, and it's like not that big, right? Hanging out, everyone's hanging out outside, got Bills gear on. There's one Dolphins fan there, but I'm like, damn, it's gonna take forever to get in, but it's worth it. So I got on a wait list. It takes like 45 minutes to sit down. I'm like, okay, still worth it, don't matter. So per Jake, I got the waffle fries, outstanding. And then I ordered the lemon pepper, the Cajun honey butter barbecue, and the medium. I'm more of a mild guy, but he said the medium was a lot better. Extra saucy, extra crispy. It didn't seem extra saucy because I don't know what traditional normal saucy is for them, so I can't really say if it truly was extra saucy or not. But man, it was life changing. I was I was hoping it was, and it actually was life changing how good they were. Because you think about it, a wing is just so easy, right? You fry it, you season it, you sauce it up, boom. But it was just something what they did. It just didn't make sense. I just don't get it how it was so good. Because you just go order a pizza place to get wings, you're like, oh, that's okay. But the way they did it, I can't explain it. Even though it was extra crispy, it was still perfectly cooked in the middle or just inside, whatever. It didn't seem dry at all. And while the flavors is just, I couldn't pick a favorite. The traditional medium was just better than any other kind of mild or medium wing I ever had in my entire life. And the Cajun honey butter barbecue was also absolutely fantastic. And the lemon pepper, man, that was just I didn't think it was going to be that great. I was like, well, I like lemon pepper, but we'll see. They were in competition for probably one of the best ones out of the three, and that's why it was so hard to pick because they were just. I wish I had more right now, but I'm hoping to get there earlier before the Thursday night game on Wednesday, and we can go to 2 or 3 wing spots and just eat wings all damn day because wow, it just felt like I needed to be there all the time. And then we'll get to this in a second, Jim. Jake's going to talk about that. Hell yeah, we'll hit the OG Easter Aurora one when you're in town again. Yeah, I'm going to be there Wednesday before the game. He said, glad to hear it. Thoughts on the blue cheese. Man, I love blue cheese, but it's 100%. People that don't like blue cheese, it's 100% different in Buffalo, man. Wow. Like I said, I'm like blown away by it. And I'm smiling because it was so good and I want to experience it again. So whether you're a Bills fan or not, if your team's playing Buffalo, whether you're a Dolphins fan or not, go to Buffalo early, go to a wing spot, Barbell especially, and actually experience this for yourself because it was definitely well worth it. We'll get the logo updated for you. It was the logo from 98 to 2019. Oh, okay. I get what he's saying. He wants the current logo. So, yeah. Let's break this down quick. I'll go first. Who's better, Diggs or Hill? So, when you look at them as a receiver, in my opinion, Diggs is a better route runner. Diggs has better hands. Diggs is more physical, but Tyreek Hill's faster. So, stat-wise, Tyreek Hill's always going to be better because he's always going to get big yards. But as a receiver, I personally think Diggs is better than him. Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like well, first off, everything you said was right. Stephon Diggs might be the best route runner in the league, honestly. He's surgical the way he runs his routes. But it's kind of funny. It almost feels like Tua would be better suited to Stephon Diggs' receiving strengths, and Josh Allen would be better suited to Tyreek Hill's receiving strengths because Josh Allen has this arm that he can't overthrow. He's got this arm that he overthrows everybody, but Tyreek Hill has this speed that he can't be overthrown. So it's kind of funny how that works. But I guess I'd give a slight. No, I'm not going to give a nod to either of them. I think they're both great in their own ways.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're both, in my opinion, they're both in the top 3.
Yeah,
at least top 5.
Absolutely.
I just think as a pure receiver, you got to look at more than just the stats that they put up. So
Yeah.
that's why I would pick Diggs. 'Cause like I said, he was always going to have more yards.
Yeah.
You might always have more catches because he's going to get targeted more than likely. Because that's the scheme that he's in now. Especially, he's always open.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you play press man coverage, which not many teams will. You play the Giants next week. He'll have 3 touchdowns, 200 yards, and you'll smoke him by 40.
I wouldn't.
The Panthers game, your starter should be out by halftime.
Where we put Garrett Wilson, Jim Page down there.
But where would you put Garrett Wilson? I mean,
I put him in the top 5. But, it's hard to gauge how good of a receiver Garrett Wilson is until he gets an honest to God decent quarterback in there. Well, I think we would have seen a coming out party of sorts from Garrett Wilson this season had Aaron Rodgers have been his quarterback. But because that offense is so hamstrung by having Russell, I did it again. Zach Wilson is their quarterback. That offense is so hamstrung by that it's hard to know how great Garrett Wilson is going to be. Next season, Aaron Rodgers is presumably coming back. Maybe we'll see how great Garrett Wilson is then. Until then, I think it's impossible to include Garrett Wilson in one of these lists.
Yeah, I think he's close to a top 10, and the only thing I'll say to that is, yeah, Zach Wilson's horrible, but there's been a lot of good receivers who have made do with absolutely horrible quarterbacks. I mean, Mike Evans before Tom Brady is one that comes to mind. He's always been a 1,000-yard receiver no matter what. Brandon Cooks always had horrible quarterbacks, 1,000-yard.
Yeah, horrible quarterbacks, but not like wholly inept quarterbacks, and that's what Zach Wilson.
Yeah, and that's the caveat to it is like, yeah, Zach Wilson is like very, very bad.
Yeah,
but people have made do with very bad situations, and it's if he can do it again this year with another I mean, if Zach plays like he did last week, there should be no reason why he can't get 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
But you got to see Wilson put it together again. And, I think he's got great qualities. I think he could be a top 10 receiver for sure. But you got to be able to I know he had 1,000 yards last year, but in my opinion, for like having a bad quarterback, even if you're a good receiver, you're going to get tons of targets. So that's what I meant. That's what I said previously about like when they had Aaron Rodgers, everybody said, oh, he might have 1,700 receiving yards. I said, I don't know necessarily because they probably have similar targets because they threw the ball to him more than anyone else with bad quarterbacks because he's the best receiver. So how much more is it going to change? Yeah, he'll have better ball placement, better options, obviously throwing the ball, but got to see it again.
I'll say this. Going into the season, I was not happy about Garrett Wilson catching balls from Aaron Rodgers all season. That the prospect of seeing that did not excite me. So, and next season I'll be saying the same thing. I think Aaron Rodgers, a guy like Garrett Wilson, is perfect for the way Aaron Rodgers wants to play quarterback. Garrett Wilson reminds me a lot of Devontae Adams, honestly. He maybe a little smaller, but he reminds me a lot of Devontae Adams. And I think, if Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson get together for a full season, you had the potential to see fireworks. But like you said, Sean, we don't know yet. We don't know until we see it.
Yeah, and if the Jets keep losing, they have a chance to go after Harrison Jr. from Ohio State.
Oh, bite your tongue! I don't want to see that. Come on now.
I mean, I think they're trying to win. I don't think they'll get a top 5 pick, but if they did keep losing, I'm sure that the coaches won't get fired because they have the excuse, which is why they got Aaron Rodgers in the first place. That we would have won if we had Aaron Rodgers, so we got to give them another year. Because obviously, getting Aaron Rodgers makes you a better team. But in my opinion, it was a desperate move by Douglas and Saleh because they knew that they were going to get fired. So what makes you not get fired? Wins by having a quarterback who is a Hall of Famer. So they can go 1-16 this year and they won't get fired because they have that built-in excuse of, we were supposed to have Rodgers this year. We would have won more games if we had Rodgers. So, because like I mentioned before to Anthony, Saleh hasn't proven to be a good head coach yet. He still hasn't even now. So, and Douglas would be on the hook because he didn't get anyone besides Aaron Rodgers, the backup quarterback, to ensure if things went bad, which more than likely they were going to because Rodgers was getting old and has been getting hurt, dinged up. They weren't prepared for it. Their big scheme was Zach Wilson will never play a down this year. But he was still labeled as the backup. So they were assuming Rodgers would never miss a snap, which was their first mistake, which was detrimental mistake in my opinion. And it's still early. The Jets can turn it around, but I still think they have bigger problems than not having Aaron Rodgers, and Salah might be one of them. James Collins says the Bills are finally balanced with their offense by Josh trusting his teammates more, while specifically being confident and poised, taking what the defense is showing with play action. Yeah, and I want to touch on that just a little bit, and then we'll recap and we'll touch a little bit on the next game. Unless you got to go at 9 or was it 9:30?
No, 9:30.
Okay, well we'll wrap it up soon anyway, but because it's just us. But when you look at week 1, I mentioned how outstanding our offensive line has been. They gave up, quotations, 5 sacks week 1. Only 2 were credited to the offensive line. The other 3 were because of Josh. And I say credited because PFF has their metrics of what's the offensive line's fault, what's the quarterback's fault. Since then, they've been credited with 0 sacks in the last 3 weeks against the Commanders, against the Dolphins, and against the Raiders. The Dolphins did get 2 sacks, but it was because Josh held the ball for 5 seconds, which isn't the offensive line's fault. Because if you're blocking for 5 seconds, he could have threw the ball away or threw it anyway, but he chose to take the sack and not put the ball in harm's way. That's why it's not the O-line's fault. You can't block anybody for 5 seconds. You know what I mean? And Van Ginkel made good play. It still counts as a sack for Van Ginkel. It's still a great play by Van Ginkel, but it's not the offensive line's fault that he gave up the sack. So I felt like week 1, Josh was leaving the pocket and worried when he didn't need to be because he was having, some sort of PTSD about last year's offensive line. And he felt like he needed to just, I got to go now, instead of trusting that the offensive line was better this year. Now you see it in the last 3 weeks. He can sit back in the pocket and I think there's such thing as too much time. So he gets all like, okay, I'm just going to chill here in the same spot. I got plenty of time. And, sometimes there's such thing as too much time. But it seems like he's actually trusting the O-line now and believing they are as good as they've been performing. I don't have to leave the pocket really early unless, I see an open lane and nobody's open downfield. And I think that's part of why he's even more poised and, able to play the game he's been playing for 3 weeks. Week 1 does count, but in the last 3 weeks, he's had 10 total touchdowns, 1 turnover, number 1 in passer rating, and number 1 in total touchdowns. So he's been on fire, and even with week 1, he's having a pretty good season.
He's playing at an MVP level right now, Sean. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah,
he's playing at an MVP level.
I appreciate you saying that because I've come to the realization this year I'm not going to talk about Super Bowl. I'm not going to talk about MVP because it seems like it always doesn't happen because I talk about it or we talk about it.
It's just the last 3 games. Josh Allen, again, he lost that Jets game for the Bills. Let's call that what it is as well. He was terrible, but these last 3 games, he has turned it around to the point where he's playing MVP caliber football. I watched it firsthand with the Dolphins on Sunday. He carved them up, only throwing 25 passes, but the passes he did throw, he made every single one of them count. And just he beat them down. That was an MVP level performance, even if he did only throw 25 passes. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to Josh Allen right now. We're talking about an MVP, a great quarterback playing at an MVP level. It's incumbent upon Josh Allen to play like that as the season goes on, because it's not always going to be as easy as the Dolphins made it, as he made it look against the Dolphins.
Yeah, and it's just to quickly talk about someone who hates the Bills a lot, Nick Wright, when they talked about who's the best quarterback playing right now after week 4, and a lot of the guys said Josh Allen, and he's like, "Oh, let's put up the fake MVP banner right now in week 4." It's like, just because it's not Mahomes,
Yeah.
you still have to talk about what they asked week 4. They didn't say who's winning the MVP guaranteed right now. They said who's playing the best quarterback right now.
Yep.
I agree even with week 1, Josh Allen. Yeah. He's like, oh, I mean, Mahomes beat the Jets and he played bad, but Josh played bad and lost to the Jets. So I mean, whatever. I'm used to the double standard of Mahomes, but I mean, yeah, he's just got to keep it up. Josh has proven he can beat good teams. Like, Dolphins are great. Again, if Dolphin fans are listening, you guys got a fantastic team, and one game won't define who you are unless you let it.
Yeah.
If you go this next week and think like, oh, I mean, maybe we're not who we are, or maybe we'll smoke the Giants. They're horrible. What if Saquon comes back, and then their all-pro left tackle comes back, and John Michael Schmitz comes back, and then they might be a little bit better, and then you're shocked again.
Yeah.
I think you'll beat the Giants hands down,
but they need to be humbled by that Bills game, like you said. Be humbled by that Bills game, and
Absolutely.
When New York comes in, be ready to rip their throats out.
Yeah, and I agree that it's a game like, yeah, obviously you should win this game, but demolishing them like 30-10 or something, that will just, obviously you should win by that much, but it will make you guys feel like, okay, we wrote the wrong. Just like when we beat the Raiders. Yeah, they're a horrible team, but we wrote the wrong from last week.
They call them get right games. Get right. We call them get right games. This is our game against a lesser opponent to prove that we are still prove to ourselves and prove to the rest of the nation that we are still a force to be reckoned with. In spite of the fact that we got beat down by the Bills, in spite of the fact that you guys lost to a Jets team that lost Aaron Rodgers in the first quarter. Get right game. Get right. Period.
Absolutely. And we'll start talking about the Giants and the Dolphins quick. I just did want to mention, I feel like when Josh plays the Jets, I mean, we beat them more than we lose to them, obviously, but I feel like he wants to just dominate them so bad because, I mean, last year they only gave up one 300-yard passer, and it was Burrow. I just feel like he wants to just absolutely demolish them, and he tries so damn hard and deviates away from the game plan, which he did the last 2 times we lost to them. And obviously he wants to beat the Dolphins too, but he's known to be very good against the Dolphins. I think he's got AFC Player of the Week 11. He'll probably get it this week, so he'll have it 12 times. I think at least half of them were against Miami. So he knows he can play well against Miami, but he hasn't lit up the Jets like he's lit up Miami. And I think he could, but he just wants to do it so quickly and makes it a 30-point play in one throw. And
he's pressing.
I really find it interesting because that's that one team that no matter what, he just can't dominate. He could beat them, but it just seems like he's a different person. And I don't think it's because we've beaten great defenses before, but it's just that against them, it just feels like he has to be. I got to put up 400 yards passing and throw 5 touchdowns and no picks. I got to do it. And I think that's something he needs to. I'm not going to say that's 100% what it is. Just to me, watching them play the Jets, it feels like that to me. But speaking of the Dolphins and the Giants, it's a home game for you guys. You guys got to be crazy and loud. And hopefully you get Connor Williams back. Hopefully Jalen Phillips can come back. And then, you guys can have that positive outlook before the game starts. And then it's also a good game for a guy like Kader Kohu to bounce back and a guy like Mostert to bounce back, because people forget already that Mostert and Achane produced 350 rushing yards against the Broncos. Yeah, it's the Broncos, but they did it, which is incredible. You can't take that away from him no matter who you play. And then he got shut down this week, Mostert. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, come on, Mostert sold out the game, like whatever." But he can come out this week and have another 150 rushing yards for Mostert. So it's a big game for a lot of your guys to come back from. The Giants are just horrible. I mean, you've watched them play, I think, 2 primetime games already.
Yeah.
And I think they scored 3 points.
3 points in 2 primetime games, yeah.
They've been outscored 96-3 in prime time, or 94-3 in prime time. And then they lost. Who was the other loss they had?
Well, they lost. They barely beat the Cardinals. They had a granted come back against the Cardinals. Lost to the Cowboys and Seahawks in prime time, and their loss was against who? It wasn't divisional. It wasn't It wasn't the Eagles or the Redskins or the Commanders. Darn.
Because I feel like they got blown out in that game too.
Yeah. I
can't remember though.
Let's see. Giants. Seahawks, Niners. They got blown out in that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
30-12.
Yeah. So they've been horrendous.
Yeah.
They have great players though. I mean, a couple of the games they didn't have Saquon, but this is the type of game where you guys are absolutely a better team, and this will show how your coach is and how your players respond to adversity. Now they're going to feel slept on. They're going to feel. I mean, you guys are 10-point favorite, 11-point favorites, but they're going to feel like people forget about Miami now because they lost to Buffalo, which isn't true, but they can use that as a motivation to dog walk the Giants.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you guys haven't gotten an organic pass rush at all this season or really last season. This Giants team just gave up 10 sacks. They don't have. I don't know if their left tackle, their all-pro left tackle is going to be playing. John Michael Schmitz did get hurt in that game. Their center, so they might have a backup left tackle, a backup center, not that good of a guard, and their right tackle is horrible. So don't know how that's going to go. This could be really come out game for your defense as well, and a performance you could build on. It won't take away all the issues that you have just by beating the Giants, but it could be a motivation and a get right game for the defense as well. I think you guys will win. I want to say like something crazy like 40-6, but yeah. I'm gonna be safe and say like 28-13.
Yeah,
because I think it's not up or shut up for the Giants too, because they got the Dolphins and Buffalo next. Yeah. They could go 1-5 and their season's over. They were a playoff team with the coach of the year last year, and they had a pretty good defense last year. And I was never a huge Dayball guy, and he's kind of getting exposed as who he was really as offensive coordinator, because I thought they were led by the defense last year. Everyone said Dayball's a great coach. The defense led them to the playoffs.
I'll say this, Sean. Daboll got about as much as anybody's ever gotten out of Daniel Jones last year.
He had touchdown passes though.
I know, but yeah, I don't think Daniel Jones is capable of all that much in the NFL. But but he got about as much as anybody could have out of Daniel Jones. He also encouraged Daniel Jones to run a lot more, and the Dolphins.
It's good and bad.
What's that?
It's good and bad though, because he can end his career early. He does have. I don't mean to cut you off, but he almost had to stop playing football, I think 2 years ago, because he had some spinal issue, and he got hurt, and it worsened the issue. And he had 700 rushing yards. And before I get into that, whenever people mention running quarterbacks, nobody ever mentions Josh Allen. They always say, I think it was Ryan Clark or whoever was talking about Daniel Jones, or he's like, oh yeah, he had 700 rushing yards last year. They must think he's like Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson. I'm like, you guys know that Josh just ran over 700 yards like 3 times and had 10, 8, 7, 6 rushing touchdowns. Like, why does anybody ever talk about him? But that's nonetheless, it's good and bad, because Daniel Jones is a great runner, but Daboll did the same thing with Josh. You overrun sometimes, and it could hurt you. It could hurt your quarterback. It could hurt his career longevity. That's one thing Dorsey has done this year, was taken away a lot of all the design runs, basically, besides QB sneaks. And most of the time when Josh runs now, it's because nobody's open downfield, and there's a big lane to run through. So he takes it. So it's good and bad, in my opinion, for a quarterback to run like Daniel Jones, because he isn't really that great of a passer, and he can run. But if you overrun him he cannot play football anymore because I don't remember what the injury was with the spine, but one of my old friends, who's I guess no longer a friend anymore, is a Giants fan, and we talked about this before. So you guys could look it up about Daniel Jones and his neck injury, but that almost kept him from playing football. So Daboll's putting that at risk every time he makes Daniel Jones run. So you got to figure something else out. You know what I mean? And sorry to cut you off.
Oh no, I appreciate what you're saying. I think. Okay, Dave Brown. Wow. I never put two and two together on that one. That's actually a pretty apt comparison. Yeah, no, I think Daniel Jones is what he is. And he's a guy that can't make the mistakes they made against the Seahawks because, if Daniel Jones at his best is a game manager, that's kind of what you're going to get from Daniel Jones. I don't agree with the Giants giving him the extension they gave him this offseason for a game manager type, the way Daniel Jones is. But, if you're going to trot Daniel Jones out there, it's incumbent upon Daniel Jones not to make the same kind of mistakes that he made against the Seahawks. That interception that he threw that Brian Daboll got in his face about and was really upset about, Daboll had every right to get upset about that one because that's not a ball Daniel Jones should have ever thrown. And those are the kind of mistakes Daniel Jones has been making this season. He hasn't been the game manager type of quarterback that he was last season. And maybe that's the contract putting a little pressure on him, making him think that he needs to do more and be more than he was last year. And the fact of the matter is that Daniel Jones needs to just play within himself. And if he does, the Giants can be I'm going to stop short of saying formidable here, but like they can be a decent team. They can be a team that can give a team like the Dolphins problems.
Yeah, I will say though about Jones, he doesn't have a number one receiver. Their offensive line has been horrible this season.
Yep.
And
he hasn't had
been
Saquon.
out.
Yeah.
And Saquon's been out. So he has to be like when you look at this kind of situation, it's like he has to be like Josh Allen. He has to be the runner. He has to be the thrower. He has to catch his own passes. He has to get away from all the pressure. And Jones just can't because it's too much. And I feel like, and I just talk about the Bills so much, but this is why I always feel like Josh doesn't get enough respect. Because up until this year, he had to be like that. He was 80+% of the offense more than any other quarterback in the NFL in a few years because he had to be. Jones isn't that lucky right now because he doesn't have his best player, Saquon. He doesn't have a true wide receiver one. Darren Waller, a guy they brought in that was supposed to be helpful, hasn't done jack shit. Excuse my language. And their offensive line has been atrocious. Their best player on the offensive line has been gone. He's been sacked. He was sacked 9 times against Dallas, and I think 10 times against Seahawks. I don't know the other games, but that's insane. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. What's this kid supposed to do?
And we've talked about the Dolphins' defensive woes over the course of these first 4 games, and it all culminated against Buffalo, where they just completely fell apart. Again, this is a get right game for the Dolphins. This is a game where the Dolphins can dominate this offensive line, kind of dictate this game from their, defensively, and hopefully get right on defense, start to kind of get a little bit more of a defensive identity for themselves. And offensively, Dolphins can continue to do what they've been doing. Hopefully they get Connor Williams back. Hopefully Teron Armstead isn't going to be out for very long. He's already been ruled out for this game against the Giants, but it actually might be. He actually might go on the IR. If we're being honest about it here. But this is a get right game in every aspect, and this is a game where the Dolphins defense can kind of. Dolphins are going on a losing streak. Well, it's cute that you think that, Jim. But this is a game the Dolphins should win. This is a game the Dolphins better win if they have any sort of aspirations going forward. They have a game against the Giants this week, and then the Panthers, and then they're traveling to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. I fully expect the Dolphins to be 5-1 coming into this Philadelphia game.
They should be.
They should be.
Is it in Philly? You said
it is in Philly. I'm going
you're
to
gonna
it.
go.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm going to be.
Okay.
I'm going to go to that game. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know
Yeah.
we gotta go. I know we gotta go soon. So let's get to the Bills game quick and
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up. Going to London to play the Jags. We haven't beaten the, like I mentioned, we haven't beaten the Jags. They're kind of like a boogeyman to us right now. I just don't get it. But the Jags haven't played well this year. They do have Calvin Ridley, who's been a great wide receiver one for Trevor Lawrence. I haven't gotten in the Jags film yet, but just from what I've seen, it seems like they've been struggling to be who they were last year. And, you know, when you look at teams like even the Bills, when they broke the playoff drought in 17, they were 9-7. They made the playoffs. The next year they didn't make the playoffs, and they were 6-10. And it seems like a lot of one team, like team 1 year has success, and they take a step back year 2. The Giants won a playoff game last year. They beat the 2 seed, I think, in the Vikings. And now they're 1-3, about to be 1-5 potentially, and then their season's over, and they've looked horrible. So the same thing I feel like is happening with the Jags. They started off kind of slow last year, but then they heated up. They smoked they beat the Chargers after they were getting smoked 30-0, and then they should have beat the Chiefs. It's just that one or two plays happen and then they lose. So, but to me, it seems like they've taken a little step back. They haven't really gelled as much yet. Their defense is wishy-washy. It was that year we lost to them too, but this is a game where the Bills team knows we have to bring our A game. We had to play like we did against the Dolphins, not score 40-something points, but we have to have that same attitude going to a game like this because they're still a good team. They're not playing well right now, but they're still a good team. They can play well at any moment.
Yeah.
They could put up 40. They could put up 30. Their defense can come up to play. They still got Josh Allen on defense. So
Jaguars are a coiled up snake, and if they catch fire and bite at the right time, they can beat anybody in the NFL.
Yeah,
they haven't played that way thus far this season, but if they figure it out at some point, if they figure it out against the Bills are going to have a tough time with the Jaguars.
Yeah, and this is another massive game in the sense of a lot of people saw the Jags being potentially battling for the 1 seed. They won't let you win. They want to move the Jags to London. Yeah, I know. But yeah, because they have an easier schedule because they have an easy division. The Chiefs aren't playing that well either.
No, Bengals are playing terribly.
The Bengals are. If they lose this week, they're done.
The AFC
they should have lost to the Rams, but
and just a side note here, Sean. The AFC looks wide open all of a sudden. You know, teams that were looking like they were going to be absolute juggernauts going into the season they look human. Even the Chiefs looked human against the Jets. The Bengals have been horrible. You know, the Ravens have looked good, but the Ravens haven't always looked good. They lost to the Colts, you know.
And they beat the Browns without
Deshaun Watson. So, you know, a lot of these teams in the AFC that looked invincible going into the season, they're looking human. They're looking like they can be had. This is where teams like the Dolphins, teams like the Bills kind of come in and they think, okay, we have a real shot at this year. Not that we didn't think that going into the season, but now, like, you know, the Bengals look down and out. The Chiefs look mortal. You know, it's the Jaguars don't look as good as they did last year. It's looking brighter as the season goes on.
Yeah, so it's like you beat the Jags. The Jags go to 2-3. You're 4-1, and if you keep taking care of business, eventually we got to play the Chiefs. Eventually we got to play the Bengals. So the Bengals do catch fire, and you know we play them, and they got 3 or 4 losses, and we got 1 or 2, and you beat them. Then you're basically not worried about them anymore. Handle business. The Chiefs, we're 2-3 against them with Josh Allen, but we've proven we could beat them, and we should have beat them in that playoff game. So the Chiefs aren't really that boogeyman to us anymore. We know we can beat them. We got to beat them in the playoffs, but we know we can beat them. And then, you know, like I said, if you take care of the Jags, and then you go to Sunday Night Football against the Giants, you got to take care of business there. It's all about controlling your own destiny, Josh always says we got to keep it right here, 1 week at a time. I always say, I use my baseball analogy from my old good old skipper for the Nationals, Davey Martinez. When we won the World Series, the slogan was go 1-0 every day. Go 1-0 every week. Obviously, you're not going to go undefeated. Obviously, you're not going to go 162-0 in baseball. Obviously, not going to go 17-0 in football anymore. But take it that attitude. Yeah, we got to win the Super Bowl, but we got to win this week against the Jags. Every week should be a Super Bowl. So we got another Super Bowl coming up this week. Got to win it. Got to add another ring. And obviously, I'm not saying every game is a Super Bowl. I'm saying you have to look at it in that aspect because it's just as important right now. And people say, regular season doesn't matter. Every game matters because it comes down to the end anyway. So we'll get into a pregame. Mike and Jake will have a pregame tomorrow, I believe. Brett and I on Red, White, and Ruthless for Nickel City Mafia will have one Saturday. And as well, we're going to do quarter grades for position groups and players on Saturday as well. And I'm sure I'll put out a pregame at some point as well. And maybe I'll do a Sunday morning because I don't have any jobs early in the morning. So because I knew the game was at 9:30. So maybe I can wake up at 8, do a pregame show live, and then that'll be fun. So Keith, I know you gotta get out of here. We always appreciate you over here at Nickel City Mafia. And we thank you guys in the chat for hanging out with us tonight. We didn't have our other two hosts. I like to think that it was because they were scared to show their face to the kings of the division. But with all jokes aside, they'll be here next week, I'm sure. And we'll see if we can get some more wins in the AFC East. The Jets will play the Broncos. The Bills play the Jags. The Dolphins play the Giants. And the Patriots play, I don't know, actually.
I actually don't remember. Let's see.
Good night, Jim. Take care, everybody. Glad you guys came out.
Patriots at the Saints.
The Saints, a winnable game. Yeah, Jim, you could always come over here and bust balls. That's what it's all about, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. Thank you for tuning in, man. Yeah, Patriots at the Saints on Sunday at 1:00.
Winnable game.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I don't think there's an outro for the AFC Summit. No, there isn't. Okay.
Well, guys, make sure to like and subscribe and
I forgot.
and leave comments. I'll answer whatever comments you have about some of the stupid stuff I said tonight.
Absolutely. Let's get Nickel City Mafia. Keep climbing. We got to get to 2,000. They do great work all the time. They have a Buffalo Sabres show that aired for the first time tonight, the same time we went live. So go back and rewatch that. Show the guys there some love. And pray for Mike. He's getting better with his back. And Brett McDurphy as well is going through a rough time as well, our other co-host. So, have your thoughts and prayers with him as well. And thank you guys. We'll see you next time.